So sure. Let's get started.
Yeah, sure.
Let's get started. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for coming to this panel. I'm really happy and glad to be here moderating this panel about a very important segment of the CDMO market. We're gonna look a little bit deeper into the Indian CDMOs, which is very important and evolving as a very important segment within our industry. I'm really also happy to be joined by so many esteemed leaders here representing actually a very important part of our Indian CDMO industry. I'm not sure, does the mic work? Yes? Okay. So I don't need to speak louder. Okay, very good. So if you think about the CDMO industry as a whole, we're talking about $150 billion. That's the size of the market on a global space. And if you take the Indian part of it, it's actually a very surprising, it's less than 5%. It's still a small segment, but a segment that's very rapidly evolving and growing, more than 15, 20% CAGR year after year, right? And there's a reason for that, right? And it's important also to highlight, you know, India is very well known for generic, and more than 40% of the prescribed medicine in the US is coming from India. But when it comes to a service to CDMO, we're still, you know, small compared to the Western CDMOs. If you think about, you know, the Indian CDMOs, they are, in terms of revenue, an average less than $300 million, right? Compared to the Lonza and the Catalent of this world, where we're talking about $5-6 billion, still small, right? So there are certain specific element of it, and I'm really glad to be joined by my colleagues here. I would suggest we start with a round of introductions, so you know, presenting here, and then we will. It's supposed to be an interactive section, right? Whenever you have a question, feel free to ask. So if we can start from the
Sure.
right.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ashu Tandon. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Aragen. In my role, I have executive responsibilities for our global business development, account management, marketing, brand building, pricing, and contracts. Spent about 25 plus, and we'll leave the plus unsaid, years in the Indian pharma, in the sort of pharma services sector, and really excited to be here with such an esteemed panel.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Herve Berdou. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Piramal Pharma Solution. So I lead the divisions of the CDMO business of Piramal Pharma. I've been at the company for 3 years and in the industry for 30 years-ish. Not counting, absolutely not. But it's a pleasure to be with you and a pleasure to have a discussion about this very interesting segment indeed and growing.
Excellent, Herve. I'm Abdelaziz Toumi. Joined a year ago Lupin, leading the Lupin, what we call Lupin Manufacturing Solution, is a CDMO arm of Lupin, right? Chemical engineer by education. I worked for, before joining Lupin, I worked for KBI Biopharma, a mid-sized CDMO here in the US and in Switzerland, but also for Catalent and Lonza. And before that, actually, I was at the innovation side, worked for innovator company, Bayer and Merck, before joining the CDMO business. And I can't imagine actually leaving the CDMO segment. Is just an exciting segment to be into.
I fully agree with you on the CDMO excitement. Giuliano Perfetti is 4 years now. I'm leading Jubilant Biosys CRDMO as a CEO and Managing Director. 25 years plus experience in pharma, passing through big pharma, and in the last 15 years enjoying the CDMO. Very pleased to be today here with you.
Hi everyone, I'm Maneesh Pingle. So I'm with Sai Life Sciences. I've been with Sai about 6 years, and I head actually the discovery business of Sai. So we're also a CRDMO, just like your company, Giuliano. And been in the industry on the CRO CDMO side only for the last 6 years. Before that, I was an entrepreneur and had a couple of startups that I was involved in co-founding. So very nice to be here.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Eastep. I've joined Honor recently, but I've been in the Indian CDMO business for over 22 years, and I'm the VP of Strategic Alliances and Project Management. So my background is in project delivery.
Great, excellent. So we all see basically there is a lot ongoing, right, to de-risk the supply chain, right? And that's the reason also for us as a CDMO, isn't it? I think about a pandemic situation. I believe without the the CDMO will probably not be able to serve, the pandemic need as we did, right? So on the back of that, right, can you share with us what you're hearing right now from the customer, right? And what are the big industry trends from your perspective? Let's start maybe.
Anybody wants to go? I think a few trends that I'm seeing from my vantage point is that, about 2 years-ish ago is when a lot of companies started saying, we want to seek an alternative to China. So there was this whole China plus one strategy that a lot of our customers were looking at. I think that China plus one peaked probably around somewhere earlier this year is when I think that peaked. And what I saw during that time period was a lot of customers looking at India afresh and saying that, maybe India didn't qualify for my initial go around when I started outsourcing globally, many years ago. Or many of the companies over there weren't as sophisticated or set up as I expected them. So let me just take another look at India. And I think that second go around that happened, which is about 2.5 years ago, a lot of companies started doing a number of pilot projects with a variety of CROs, CDMOs in India. And what I'm seeing now from customers is saying, the pilots have all been done, and now I want to sort of get into full production mode. And I want to now finalize which partner or partners do I really want to bet in for the longer haul. And for what part of my business, whether it's on the research side or even on the CDMO side, whether it's for finished products or it is for an intermediate or a starting material, who do I really want to work with for the long haul? Because on the CDMO side, your relationships are much, much longer, much more intensive, much, much longer term. So I think now the biggest trend that I'm seeing is customers essentially deciding, where do I go now after having done those pilots? It's decision time, and what do I do next? So I think for me, that's the biggest trend that I'm seeing right now. And I think a second one is sort of beyond the regular stuff that a lot of customers look at in terms of, regulatory, quality, assurance of supply, cost, and other parameters. I think the secondary thing people are asking for is, do you guys do anything in AI? Can that be used to enable our work and make it be more efficient, make it much quicker, much faster? And can you talk to us about it? So I think that's a nice to have kind of a conversation that's happening. But I think the really meaty part is, my pilots are all over. Now what do I do next? That's what I'm seeing, Abdul.
Yeah, very good. Okay.
Yes, thank you, and Ashu, thank you. That's I think you nailed the point. It's there's a lot more in the CDMO in India that it is known for. This is very clear.
Yep.
I think it has, I would use the word, graduated over the years and is now a well-known commodity. I think there's clearly a lot of offer in terms of science, in terms of IT. I think India is the center of IT in the world and exporting a lot of talent, but also having a lot of talent that stay in India. And AI is clearly a tool that we can use everywhere. But none of us in the room will say that it's a boring time from a geopolitical or supply chain perspective. This is not boring. You can open the paper every morning or go to your iPad or whatever you do. There's a lot happening. We all have different strategies, and there's a lot of us that have clearly a global framework in mind, and that's what the Indian CDMO market is moving towards. So I know for us, I think we have sites in various parts of the world, but the Indian core business that we have built over the years has changed a lot over the last decades, and more rapidly in the last few years, to really become a real opportunity for many of our customers. So a lot more to offer than we see.
Absolutely. I can add maybe a personal story why, and I think some of us, we're not actually too Indian here, but the rest, we are not non-Indian, right? And you might wonder why you guys are joining Indian company, right? We could have options in Europe and in the US. I mean, I personally worked for Lonza and Catalent, but you know, when I visited the story I want to share with you, the Lupin group, right? And I visited the site, making my due diligence. I was blown away, really blown away by the capabilities we've got in India. I visited, manufacturing site in Nagpur or the R&D center in Pune. It's like, I mean, I've built myself the R&D center in Merck is even better than that, right? So the sheer capability of the people over there, but also we've got, right, in India, really great groups that are doing great work, right? And like if you take Lupin, we've got everything, right? From clinical development all the way to formulation, very complex also, formulation expertise, API. We're not just reduced to API. And I felt like some of our customers in Europe and US are looking exactly to those solutions, right? Put the cost competitiveness to the side, but also that kind of expertise. And India, like, you know, very well integrated with the Western world, culture very close, right? And it's a warm culture, actually. I love working there. It's just family is very important, right? Collaboration is very important. Of course, there's a lot of chaos as well, let's face it. But it's really on its way. That's my personal story, why I joined, because I believe in the future of this ecosystem. It's also a big economy in itself, like more than 1 billion of people, right? And they're getting more access now, you know, to affordable, but more than important, you know, getting also richer. So that's a market in itself. So that's the reason for me personally why the Indian ecosystem is so important.
It's a good line, Abdul, and let me share something from my side. So, of course, the two trends mentioned about the generic heritage and the need of geo-diversification are there. My perspective in the past, I was serving other CDMO like FIS and others, and we were observing 10 years ago that there was a lot of concentration in this API and CDMO, particularly on the intermediates, which are not only in the last step. And so my perspective, why I joined an Indian company, was because we were noticing that time, and I was also serving the European Fine Chemical Board, we were trying to flag this issue of dependency from one geography only to the European community. It was just before COVID. Then we get some more audience from our counterparts. I think there is an issue to preserve and make the supply chain robust. So one emerging trend or emerging need I'm hearing from our customers today is, let's say we put our API to India, but what about the intermediates? Where you source from the intermediates? And how you solve this issue to reduce dependency from one country? And I think here is where India is doing the step up, because I'm noticing every day there are much more suppliers. We do have our, let's say, external manufacturing to secure the supply chain and back integration in order to provide this answer to our customer. It's not, you know, zero risk, but it's just balancing and mitigating the risk on that. Another point is, I'm sure there are other questions you will ask on this uncertainty which is in the market. But there are some, you know, fundamentals we notice from Indian perspective which are definitely strong. Capacity and level of, you know, infrastructure is really amazing. In addition, there is a lot of investment that have been made in the education, and speaking English language is also an advantage for our customers. When you go to the master batch record, of course, not just when you discuss at our level. So these will provide, I think, a lot of traction, and we are all us noticing this excitement. Of course, it's putting some attention to the way we execute that, because the supply chain robustness pass through, keep the promise, and be very solid on the systems you need to guarantee in terms of quality, EHS, ESG, and other parameters. So
you have a
Go ahead.
question?
Oh, I was going to ask
Yeah.
a question. So with intermediates, they're obviously coming out of China.
yeah,
So is India building their supply internally, or
Yeah.
how is that? And the reason why I say it, because you also heavily tariff, and unfortunately in the pharma industry at the moment, hopefully not forever, you look at the recent alliance of moving with Jinping from China and Russia, how does that reflect on where India is and where it's going?
Yeah. No, thank you for it's a good question. I can, let's say, answer from our experience, our perspective is what we're trying to do is not rely fully and blindly to another country. So we try to develop our own IP, where is outside the perimeter of the CDMO IP, in order to secure the availability of the intermediates by back integrating in our company and or qualifying local Indian partners which can be complementary in sourcing the intermediates. So it's one of example, there are many others, but the logic we are trying to apply is simply what we learn from our customers, the way they were doing with us, so years on years, and we try to approach this scientifically. So we have an external manufacturing structure, we have a list of qualified suppliers. I'm sure the colleagues may have similar approaches, but India is providing much more opportunity in terms of suppliers which are available to keep this production, do it rightly and even cost effectively than the past. 10 years ago, everybody were concentrating on formulation, isn't it? Now they're coming back and realizing that the back integration is a need.
Thank you.
There's a question inside.
Yes, I have a question, I guess, particularly India's China supply chain. One challenge that I find is that there are myriad suppliers in India and China for APIs and intermediates. The big issue here is that since neither India or China are part of MRA countries, bringing those APIs or intermediates in is a challenge. Like, for example, I'm from Canada, right? And from Canada to a supplier to be put on the approved list, they would need to be inspected by either the European agency, US FDA, or from Canada, or or Australian therapeutic government agency. Is there, I don't know how to phrase it, is there a pathway that India and China are thinking of getting onto that MRA list? Because that would be life-changing in a sense for both the Indian suppliers and Chinese suppliers alike.
Well, I think
Yeah, I'm happy to take it. I think we do not have an answer about what government agency would decide in terms of applying for mutual recognition type process. There is an interest for everybody that these mutual agreements exist, but I don't think any of us are aware of the process happening right now in the industry for the specific supply to Canada, for example. Yeah.
But going with that, the suppliers themselves are planning to get, I guess, more rapid inspection from
So,
US
yeah.
FDA rather than China SFDA or the Indian FDA regulatory bodies.
So I think we will all have a different strategy. I would say for Piramal Pharma Solution is we apply for license in the various geographies. So Health Canada, Santé Canada, and the FDA, EMEA, or others to be inspected, to have the site inspected as rapidly as we could. And this is happening today in all the geography. So we do not reserve that submission only for our western site, but for all the network. So that's our strategy to really apply to the license everywhere.
If I may add, right, there are suppliers and then there are suppliers. I think all of us over here, including I represent Aragen, we have sites in India that have plants that are, for example, US FDA approved, European Medicines Agency approved, PMDA approved, etc. So we have sites which are approved and not only can, but do currently supply to markets globally, to Western markets globally. So that's obviously a a path that's already well trodden and well established in India.
Yeah, we have in India more than 237 FDA approved sites, right,
Yeah.
for API.
But how many sites are not FDA approved?
That's
But
a
they
good
are
question.
suppliers
Yeah.
and they are
That's a
suppliers,
good-
right? Yeah. Yeah.
I think we can only talk about
Yeah.
ours. I think it's a
Yeah.
fair
It's a fair
point.
point,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a lot of sites.
Because I've been to both India and China, and I've been to manufacturing sites. I've seen the sites that are approved and the sites that are not approved. And the sites that are not approved, they're not bad sites. They just
Don't have the approval.
They would need to kind of build those quality systems in there, and they'll rapidly gain approval at that site.
Yeah.
And they get the share of the world market at the site.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. So Maneesh, maybe another question to
Yep.
change gears,
Sure.
right? We are very well known for small molecules,
Yeah.
right? But the world is getting more and more complex. Can you share with us, strategically what you are doing, right,
Yeah.
to serve those needs?
So I mean, it's everybody's seeing it. I think India's been very strong in small molecule for a long period of time, but the demand is changing. We are seeing ADCs, high potent materials, peptides, oligos, anything that's a little bit more difficult to handle than all of the stuff we've been very used to doing for many years. So that's pretty much almost every customer that we meet across the entire spectrum of services we offer is looking to see if we can offer that. And the questions that they have is, do you have the technology, do you have the skill and the talent, and do you have the capacity and the scale to do this, right? So what we've been doing really is looking at each of these aspects and deciding where do we want to invest our money first, where do we believe we can make an actual difference to our customers first, and then very selectively, strategically kind of figuring out where we want to do that. But across the board, recognizing that this is where the market is headed, where our customers are headed, and being prepared for that is something we do pretty much on a regular basis.
Awesome. Michael, you want to add?
Yeah, so likewise, we're investing in ADCs and high potent capabilities. I mean, when it comes down to it, India's known for small molecule, but those modalities, although they're considered more advanced, they're still chemistry at their core, right? So, leveraging the existing talent that we have and expertise in terms of manufacturing and things like that, those are things that we're actively investing in. And we're designing things based on the knowledge that's already gained and already out there in the market in terms of facility design and quality management systems.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was thinking to this question. You were mentioning, Abdil, at the beginning, the size of the CRDMO industry, which has been evaluated 35 billions in Asia Pacific, of which India is accounting for 3.5. Now, majority of this is also driven and will be driven in future, we think, from non-small molecule and advanced therapy and new modalities. So, question is how much India is prepared to that, and I think it's a good question. Each of us are taking care about that might be with different strategy. For instance, in our case, the case of Jubilant Biosys, we decided to invest in Europe on ADC and monoclonal antibodies, and then make an hybrid model with India in order to keep the cost effectiveness. But there are many options which we are noticing in India, and there is a clear focus to provide this full spectrum of services, because that will be very relevant for our customers. And just to conclude, being a CRDMO is an advantage because on the CRO side, in drug discovery, you are exposed to the next generation of innovation. So you can take advantage of that. And I think India has really a true advantage versus Western in that sense, because majority of the CRO are happening eastward. And then, invest proactively on the next generation. When you talk ADC, we are talking about ADX. Instead of using cytotoxic payloads, using oligonucleotides, using other kind of payloads. So that, I think, is different here to look at.
Fantastic.
I think just a fun fact. Do you know, I can't say the name of the client, but which which Origin is the company that manufactured one of the first ADC and got it approved and then launched on the market? Well, actually, it's an Indian company. Piramal was one of them. So that was an it was more. So we talked about, yes, we are well known for it, but I'm glad that we have the opportunity to say it again, because it's more than 20 years ago that one of those ADC was launched by the client, of course, but manufactured and approved by Western regulators in a site that we own in Scotland.
Yeah.
So.
And Ashu,
I mean, I would say that this is a really exciting time to be in the Indian CDMO space. You know, you've got this foundation built over the last 2-3 decades of the small molecule expertise. And now there's just so many new modalities that are coming up. You know, at Aragen, just earlier this week, I think it was on Monday, we sent out a social media release talking about our phase 2 inauguration of our biologics manufacturing site. You know, we put in $40 million into creating a biologics manufacturing site in Bangalore, India. At full capacity, at full scale, that will be about 23,000 liters. You know, we got through our final GMP qualification, etc. But I think the value that customers recognize about India, about the expertise that India has in manufacturing, we actually had our first customer, a European company, that gave us the order even before we cut the ribbon on the site, even before we got our GMP qualification done, because they just pretty much knew that, you know, based on all the data, the expertise, the background that we showed to them as to how we can assure them of the supply, the quality, the regulatory norms, etc. So I think it's a phenomenally exciting time to be in the Indian CDMO market. That's my view.
very nice.
Does India offer any R&D tax credits, or are there incentives
Within India?
to support the industry? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I can take some of that. There is a Department of Biotechnology within the Health Ministry or the Ministry of Commerce. I'm not sure which ministry it comes under. They give grants to certain companies to set up certain kinds of facilities. So in my experience, I've been part of a situation where the government has given us interest-free loans to set up something new in some new modality, some new area. It's very small. It's not very rapid. It's not very full-blown kind of a thing. It's definitely not at the scale that China has, but it's a start. And I think that's one of the things that the Indian industry, our industry, has to do more, is to try and influence government policy to know about what we do. So we have a consortium in India called IPSO, Innovative Pharma Services Organization, that is trying to sort of educate the government about, you know, what we are. They all think we're just generic manufacturers. So we've got to tell them about what we do, how we work on the cutting edge of science, and therefore get the government to help us a lot more than what's happening today.
I think that's going to be important for the growth of the
Yeah.
industry as a whole. I think, you know, traditionally the Indian industry is family owned, right? And which is great, right? Because, you know, if I think about Lupin, is managed in second generation by the Gupta family, right? And working with them is just not about, you know, the quarter sales. It's about what I'm giving to my son or to my next generation, right? But on the other hand, right, in order to grow fast, I mean, it's not capex intense industry, right? You've got to have, you know, some financials, all right, be it from venture fund. I think there's a shift in there, because if we want to compete on a global scale, size matter, right? And it's capex intense. I think that's where a shift is happening. And I think government is supporting this. It's an important industry, creating a lot of, you know, employment. It's innovative industry. It's a lot of lobbying happening at the same time, right, to get the fund.
Well, especially with the opening of, you know, getting away from China.
Yeah.
And I would think that the government would be, I mean, strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah.
And
It is happening. I think, as you said very well, it's not always very smooth, not
Well,
always
I
very
get that.
rapid.
I did
But this
work
is
for a
government agency everywhere in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
But especially on new technology, I think we have been lucky enough to receive some grants to invest in things that there might not be a market yet, or we might not have a client, but we can develop. So this is moving.
Yeah.
But
You mentioned venture capital in India. How is that going? Like, is there a big money venture capitalist interested in this industry and funding?
So that whole segment is on fire.
I would actually-
That whole segment. There's a lot more money chasing very few assets right now, is what I
So-
would say.
I would say that there is a lot of interest and a lot of pressure on us.
Yes.
But coming to the point of innovation, I think India is realizing that we are delivering a critical bunch of innovation, even to here and to Europe. But we were not building up the ecosystem for doing local Indian innovation. Now this is happening, not only supported by the state, structure is different from other countries. There are multiple states, right? And but also from personal standpoint or from company standpoints, companies are supporting this ecosystem in different manner. In Jubilant, which is a larger group than the company I'm managing, is only 2,400 people, but the group is 42,000 employees. With the foundation, we just commissioned just last week a hub to support startups to make innovation in India. And that's is going to the direction you were mentioning.
I just wanted to add here that most of the private equity money, if you see, that's coming into India in the last 2-3 years has been into the API, CDMO.
Yeah.
yeah.
Primarily. That is where the value is. Yeah, but then my question to the whole panel is that, the US, the venture capital is almost divided in early drug discovery companies to get a lot of funding. That's how the ecosystem goes from getting a lot of drug approved at the end. India doesn't have that yet, and so we are going the top, but the bottom will be remaining empty in India if we don't
Support the innovation, the discovery piece, right? Yeah. I agree 100%. Let's open up for any question you guys have.
So Jason Loudon from Newland Labs. One of the things that I get asked all the time, with the explosion happening right now in India, is attrition rates.
Attrition rate,
So
yeah.
U.S. biotech, in particular, Giuliano and Lopez, like the U.S., Western Europe, you're good people. They stay for a long time. India is in a situation where there's a lot of opportunities. You see CFTs, HODs, you're good nuclears going around in different places. So just wanted to get your guys' collective thoughts on
Yeah.
thought about this, like how you organization.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. I can start and you can add to it. It's true. There's a high attrition rate. People are moving around, and probably the same like in China as well, right? So you get the next offer across the road, you jump over. So we've got to do a better job in terms of retaining those talented people, right? And I think one example I have in my organization is in the R&D, and I'm just trying to figure out why. We have one team in chemistry, drug process development. We have attrition rate of 0%, which is not good. You need some attrition probably, right? But we're trying to get to the bottom of it, why people are, working that long. Is it the conditions, the location? But it's true compared to the Western world, where the loyalty is higher, the retention is higher. But it's a dynamic kind of industry, right? And
No, if I
think-
can add.
Go ahead.
Oh, please.
Well, I think culture has a lot to do with it, right? Because if you set the right tone in terms of how you treat your employees, you're more likely to be able to keep them within a certain bound. So what we see, at least for Tsai, is the management, senior management, middle management, especially the group leads, like you said, we tend to be able to keep them for a long time, but we'll see a lot more attrition at the lower levels. It's really hard to retain them because that sense of loyalty just doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
It's not there. But I think that stability at that leadership level that really knows how we work as a company, how we treat our customers, and what the dynamics are, that's really important to retain. But I mean, I wish we could actively all get together and say we want, we'll try and keep a unified front, but it's very hard to do in that environment. So.
No, To add, I think you're right, Jason. Attrition it is higher than Western. In our experience at Jubilant Biosys, we noticed that the average is not representative of the entire population.
Yep.
So we noticed there is a higher attrition rate on the youngers,
Yep.
the younger level, while we are pretty robust on the experienced people. So in terms of IP protection from our customer, we don't see issue, but we were not satisfied with that. So what we did internally, I told to my team, I say, we are dinosaurs, because these youngers, they are 30, 32, 27 years old. We don't know the value proposition for them. So we create a group internally. We call this Council of Generation Z and Y, and then ask them what is the need they have. And we are noticing a good traction in that respect, which is changing our way to deliver the value proposition for the employees. So we are very positive on that we can have the right attrition rate, but at the same time form and train excellent scientists and retain them in future.
Yeah. I mean, what I would just add is, I don't think it's a valid comparison from a Western economy to, for example, the Indian economy or the country. The demographics are completely different. That labor market is really, really hot. So, people are going to jump. And I think overall it's a good thing. But like my co-panelists are saying, when you do sort of the substrata of that analysis, you see that, if an employee stays with you for the first 3 to 5 years or so, they are very likely to stay for a much longer period of time. And similar to what I think Abdel also mentioned, when I look at some of the most senior levels, the middle management and above, we have very, very low attrition, which is also not a good sign at some point in time. So the issue is, how do you get that younger generation or people who just join in to stay for longer? I'll just give one example, and it's a fun example, and I love giving this. We have people who join us straight from school. In India, you do your high school, you get into college, then you do your master's, there's no work experience in between, and then you suddenly join Aragen and you're working in the chemistry lab, and you're like, holy cow, this is not what I want to spend the rest of my life doing. I want to be a barista, I want to do a startup, I want to go do something else. And then people leave. Or they say, I don't like my manager. There's all kinds of things. In India, and as a native Indian, I can say this, when you're just sort of at that age group, your aspiration in life, particularly as a male, is I want to own a bike. That's your aspiration. I just want to own, in India we call them two-wheelers, whether it's a bike or a scooter. So we ran a program, and we still continue to do that. It's a big hit. We run a program where you see people in that first 2-3 years of work experience that show tremendous amount of potential. We give them a company leased bike, and we say, you stay with us for 3 years, the bike is yours, right? Suddenly they start liking the fact that they're going to work in a lab, and I think everybody should do that. Suddenly they say, working in a lab isn't that bad. I'm going to get a bike, and I can take my girlfriend out for a spin or something like that, and even bikes and scooters for female employees and stuff like that. And then there's a whole host of things that pretty much everybody in the industry does, right? We all run some version of daycares or creches, as they're called in India, for employees, who come in and stuff like that. So there's a lot of the stuff that you do, but I think just comparing the labor market, the country demographics won't always give you a like-to-like comparison. I don't think it's an apples-to-apples comparison.
I agree all of the things you just said. I also have experience in seeing that the high productive employees don't get the promotion on time to be moving up in the chain. And that's the biggest issue in India that I can tell you. Working in Indian company, I work in Indian company actually. I've seen that. These guys are the bread and butter of the company. When you get a client coming to your site, you're getting them work, and they're producing, they work day and night sometimes. They're so dedicated, they're so devoted employees. But at the end of the year, confidentially, they'll call me, sir, can you? It's like, and then you said, we have higher level, management level, they're dinosaurs, basically. They started the company, they're still there, they're still VPs, whatever level they are. So these people are still scientists, senior scientists, whatever level they ever started.
Maybe the dinosaurs gave it away.
But I think we're
But I'm saying that that's a cultural thing, kind of, but still, it's in the West, it's completely different because if you are a productive employee,
Yeah.
you get promotion on time, you get your bonus on time, you get move up in the same. That's probably
I wouldn't agree on that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't agree on that.
I have also
I think
some
we have to look
Having
at
worked with enough Indian companies across CRO, CDMO, as well as the technology services space, I wouldn't agree with that as a broad brush. Might be an example or two which I can grant, but I wouldn't agree on that.
Yeah,
I don't know about the others.
I think
and I
the
would
most
say
Very good. Let's
Like-
take more questions.
question.
Attrition rate is well discussed after. You have another question, right? Or attrition rate?
You talked about the CMO space overall quite attractive. But look at Western world. If you're talking about the multinationals and innovation company, they are offering 50 to 70% CDMO services. Look at India. Exactly the number is same, 70% CDMO services. So how do you interpret that? Where it is going to lead?
I'm not sure I understand the
I
question.
didn't understand the question.
Repeat it again.
Look at Novartis, look at Lonza.
Yeah.
Any company globally, they are also offering CDMO services.
But Lonza is a pure CDMO, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So even today, if you are talking about India or China, they are also. So what is going to happen? Where are we going to?
Yeah. So maybe I can take this. I think just to reformulate the question is that there is an emerging growth of offering CDMO services from large pharma, which conveniently they can use their capacity or free capacity,
Like Pfizer.
like Pfizer one and others.
Sanofi,
That's
okay.
so. My perspective is that's true. Is increasing. It was there even in the last years. I would divide this in two segments. On the small molecule, I don't think will play a big role because the specialization which has a CDMO on small molecule is so advanced, and the flexibility you can ensure because you focus all the customer the same is much more compelling proposition. What I see is that on emerging technology, for instance, Novartis to mention, on cell and gene, on this emerging technology, that there is a competition in that sense, which we need to cope with. But still, I'm a believer that having a clarity on your offering as a company, being a service offering, CDMO is about service. Product is a consequence, it's not the product. And this will fully require to have a dedication in that sense and have all the customer at the same level.
Couldn't agree more.
I would say it's important to see this competition as very serious. They are very good professional and they have good experience. But we are doing services where they come from an history of supply of 1 or 2 lines of products. Things that we can't afford only to have. We serve, we are flexible, we are more nimble than they would have, and we are proud of what we do. So there is no confusion in our head about what is our mission. Our mission is to serve a patient through a customer, and the market change, we are changing with it, we are adapting. I think some of those competitions will have a more difficult journey because that's not where they come from. So.
Excellent. Let's take one last question.
That's the question.
Okay, you will have a chance for a last question.
You made a reference before
Sorry, because
to the structure of Indian companies that they tend to be family owned.
Yeah.
And then you made some reference to the injection of capital.
Yes.
I presume from the federal government. And I wondered
Or
if you or anybody else on the panel is at liberty to comment on that further, where the capital may be coming from, and supplemental to the federal Indian government, whether capital may be coming from external sources abroad or within Italy.
yeah, no, this is a good question. I don't think that we're looking for federal fund. It's more private, I believe, right? Through venture fund. And as we discussed before, there's a lot of appetite, even not only Indian venture fund, but global one. Remember, we are a global company, right? We are rooted in India, but we're offering our services. Our client base is not sitting in India, unfortunately, right now, right? Which would be nice if that will evolve, and it will over time. Look at China as a good example, right? China is becoming really an innovation powerhouse, not only service provider, and I suspect that India will become also in the future. But we have access to money not only out of India on a global space, and I think a lot of money is flowing into CDMO, right? It seems to be a good hedge as well, right? Because often the pipeline of CDMO is quite diversified, right? It's not like if you think about product company, even the largest one, there is higher risk, whereas we are serving, all of them, right? And it's a bit less riskier.
But it's private money or
private,
it
more
coming
private
from
money.
public companies. It's not coming from state. If that was the question.
Yeah. The injection of funds is from the private equity venture funds. The government reference was for, loans for certain capabilities, but that's not in return for equity stake in the company. That's
It's
just
more tax incentive.
And it's
There was a
very,
last question.
very small.
So my question is that I see on the panel there are 4 CROs which are emerging into CDMOs. This is what the journey is. And now I see a lot of API manufacturers, including Cadila, where I come from, offering CDMO services. So how do you see the scenario in the next 5 years?
Yeah. It's a very good question. I can start first comment from my side. I think there is no one journey to be CDMO. And there are pros and cons in both journeys, but I think there is a great opportunity for both sides. So in our perspective, for instance, we have both because we combine an API manufacturing company with the CRO side. So I can observe that on the CRO, you may benefit for this need for speed, which is very convenient in the early CDMO. Rather on the API manufacturing, since we do have 20 years of experience in GMP, PMDA, FDA, you may leverage your cost effective and reliability. But both the pathway for me would be, will converge to make, I would say, greater and larger CDMO in India.
I think the secret to success as a CDMO is converting very, very early the customer and then executing well. Then they're not going to leave you, right, if you execute well. And I think the earlier you talk to the customer, the better it is. That's why a lot of CDMO, are merging into CROs.
It's the same point, right? It's like the gold rush. Everybody's going towards that. It doesn't matter where you're starting from, whether from a CRO side or from a branded generics formulation company. Everybody knows that there is growth in the Indian CDMO market. Well, there are ups and downs, as you're currently seeing with the tariffs and all of that stuff. But I think the long-term trajectory is very, very clear. And I think that's just the emotion that the panel is really sharing out with everybody, that there is a lot of action there. It's an exciting time to be there, and I wouldn't be anywhere else, is my view.
Awesome. Yeah. I think we can go forever. We're starting to get really great questions. What do we do? I think we maybe 5 minutes, 2 questions, and we close this session. Go ahead.
Hi, my question is, we talk about lots of potential things in Indian manufacturing industry, but my question open for all panel, that what do you think that what could be the limitations or the areas where Indian manufacturers should work, and so that they can lead and become a leaders in CDMO industry?
So I can take this. I think we've spoken all about good things and positive things, of course. But to be really successful as Indian CDMO manufacturing, we need to deal with our mistakes. And this, I think, it would be the criteria to select the best CDMO players. So enhancing transparency once we do mistake, because chemistry is not easy, and mistakes are happening, or issues are happening. So the way we do manage this issue transparently with our customers, professionally providing the right solutions, and having a learning curve in the organization in order to avoid again the same mistake, that in my view would be the differentiator.
Michael, you want to?
And I think also modernization, building up. I know at Honor we're investing almost $100 million to upgrade our facilities, make sure that they're state-of-the-art, investing in things like machine learning and things like that, leveraging the expertise that we've gained through our manufacturing or the maturity of our quality management systems. I think admitting mistakes, those are things that are difficult. Those are cultural. In my experience, those have been cultural hurdles. So we always try to foster that, it actually builds trust, right? Admitting mistakes and being upfront with those things with the customers. But I think from an infrastructure perspective, it's modernizing the plants, making sure that from, doing single fluid systems or, having the auto samplers and the PTS, all of those controls in place that companies are looking for when they're looking to place their projects in India.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that, if you walk into a plant for an Indian CDMO, it shouldn't feel like you're walking into an Indian plant. It should be the same standard as anywhere in the world, right? And that's really the key. So investing without shortcuts and recognizing that what you need to build is something that's acceptable to the customer is really important. And so that's what we try to do as well. So.
Very good. One last question.
Thank you. Thanks to the panel. And this question is perhaps in relation to the Indian culture. I notice 6 leaders, and you're all males.
Men.
So as a female here, I have to ask, how, and these are global companies, some of them here, so what are you doing to empower females in your organization to move up, especially in leadership roles? Thank you.
Great question. Thank you so much.
Great question. Yes. First of all, give you a job. Please drop the CV at the end of the session. The second one, my chairperson at Piramal Pharma is a woman. At the board, we have around 45% women represented for this listed company. Across especially on the Indian side, the Western side have not won the battle because I don't think that's true. I don't think it's true. But in India, we are investing heavily because we had a representation of around 0% in some of our manufacturing sites. Literally, we had to build a bathroom, build a creche. That becomes a decisions, and you put a target, and you put the money behind it, and you drive to it. There's a cultural element, but in some of the locations, we had to start this way, and then we arrive into 10, 15, 20%. Then we measure it every month, and we report it every month. And we ask questions, how many women were presented at the hiring panel, and so on and so forth. So we do exactly the same thing that we would do anywhere else in the world to ensure this is happening. And we have seen in the last 2 years a very steady growth and recruitment also of more female leaders that are being trained on all that. And it's about the flexibility at work, the creche that you mentioned earlier, I think all the support, because if you don't build it, that stays a nice PowerPoint that has zero effect.
I agree 100%. Our CEO is Vinita is a woman, right? It's on the top already, and absolutely. But it takes time because when I was at on the manufacturing site, it's really man's word in India, right? And it's caring, right? It's just like it feels somehow different because I'm used to work in an environment where you have much more diverse workspaces. And let's face it, it will take time in India. It's just culturally, right? It is like it took time in Europe as well and in the Western. I'm committed. My leadership team at Lupin Manufacturing, so we have already 30% women in leadership, and I'm selective. I'm really saying let's favor it, right? Because it feels better when you have a diverse team, right? And than just man's word. I agree 100%. But especially now in India, it will take time, right? Because I think even in Europe, I don't see that also happening. It's gradually taking up. I'm not sure about the US, but.
But
in
you
the
have a
same
prime
time,
minister.
Yeah. I would encourage. I would encourage you to
Germany
visit some of our sites and see that from 0 to 25%. This is a very noticeable change, and it changed the dynamic. So it's a very positive.
I think we have to go the extra mile, and I think India has to be in India. What I see when I meet with women scientists, when I'm talking to them, the number one question is, can there be more flexibility in how we work? Because especially early in their career, when they might be young mothers, for example, the responsibilities that they face are not the same ones that men in India face. It's very true. And it's changing in India, for sure. But there's something that you need to do that allows them to be able to rise up in the ranks as well, recognize the skill, the talent, and give them opportunities. So that's the number one request I hear from them when I talk to them, which is make our life more flexible. So that's something that we're trying very hard to do. But agree, it's going to take time, but the trajectory is certainly there. So, but thanks for pointing it out. It's very true.
But just to reinforce, should come from the top. So we are responsible for that. We do have targets. We publish those targets and the achievement. But more important, we should drive the culture at lab level, at the real level. And, we have tools for doing that. Each of us has managerial responsibility. So there are cases where we can make the difference, and that's our responsibility.
And I have 3 girls, right, and a boy, and I want them to also get on the top eventually. So thank you so much. I think my panelist colleagues will be. We have enjoyed this. I hope you too. It was a very engaging discussion. Thank you very much for the participation. I think we'll reach more than 100 probably of people joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We take a picture together.